You're listening to Civic Media. You can tune into any of our live shows on any radio station across the state with the Civic Media app. Find us in your phone's app store and listen anytime, anywhere.
Epstein Files, Epstein Files. Please expose them completely. Your denials out of style. Now you're coming off weakly. What's in them so heinous you can't show? Prove you're not transgressed.
Sing along if you know the words.
Epstein Files, Epstein Files. Yes, they'll haunt you forever.
Haunt you forever.
WMDX 92.7. I'm in tears already.
Doesn't that get you in the holiday spirit?
It really does.
That's from, Edelweiss from Sound of Music.
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
Very poignant part of the film. Anyway, yeah. Epstein Files.
Kind of destroyed that song.
Well, the Epstein Files, they're coming out now.
Well,
more leaks.
Well, we'll see. There's a vote next week. I don't know why it didn't just happen immediately and release them all. Of course, some of the Democrats are spreading some of the files around. Where have they held onto these? Why didn't they spread them earlier? Right? I mean, one says that Trump spent hours with one victim.
Yes.
And that's not good, right? I mean, it doesn't bode well for Trump's, I don't know, excuses that he never even knew Epstein.
And Michael Wolff, the guy that wrote that Fire and Fury book, he's letting out a lot of information.
Yes, he's letting a lot of stuff out there. Yeah. We should just put it all out there.
Well.
And what happened to reading the names? The victims put together a list of names of people who victimized them. So I don't know what happened to that either. All right. Anyway, Trump says that the Dems are selectively releasing the files, which, does that change anything? I don't know. Takes it out of context. I'm not quite sure what he's saying with that. The Financial Times said this. Jeffrey Epstein said that Donald Trump spent hours at my house with a woman later identified as a victim of sex trafficking, according to the emails that raised fresh questions about the relationship between the late pedophile and the U.S. president. That's never good. And somebody posted headlines. This is kind of in contradiction to their fight against human trafficking, right? Yeah. It says here, revealed, Trump administration retreats on combating human trafficking and child exploitation. That's odd. State Department office combating human trafficking faces cuts, former leader says. Trump administration pulls back on work combating human trafficking. Along a topic of the GOP, Trump administration cuts resources for agencies fighting human trafficking and slavery.
Wow.
So,
why would they do all those
all of
cutbacks?
A sudden, something is different or has changed? All right, now let's get to Caroline Leavitt, spokesperson for Trump. Boy, I don't know. Where did they find her? She is an amazing thing. I think she looks a lot like the Megan AI creation robot, the movie Megan. Yeah. So, honestly, she looks just like that android. Anyway, this is her talking about what's going on. It's truly a manufactured hoax. Let's listen.
Okay. And it just shows how this is truly a manufactured hoax by the Democrat Party. For now, they're talking about it all of a sudden because President Trump is in the Oval Office. But when Joe Biden was sitting in there, the Democrats never brought this up. This wasn't an issue that they cared about because they actually don't care about the victims in these cases. They care about trying to score political points against President Trump, as we have, of course, seen with this government shutdown.
Okay, so if we're trying to score political points, there must be something to it, right? What are they afraid of?
Yeah.
What are they afraid of? Now, the Democrats didn't have to bring it up because Trump was bringing it up all the time and threatening to release those files, thinking that the Democrats were on that list.
Yeah.
So we're going to release those day one.
Right.
They brought it up.
Yes.
We did not have to bring it up. Okay, just to set the record straight. Get this. In Wisconsin here, the Wisconsin GOP had a problem. Well, here, let's listen to, this is State Representative Lee Snodgrass. She is criticizing Republican lawmakers for removing an amendment urging Congress to release the Epstein files. They didn't want to get on board. They didn't want to say, hey, come on, Congress, release these files. Let's listen to what Lee Snodgrass had to say.
Jeffrey Epstein trafficked, raped, victimized, and harmed children and women, and rich and powerful and influential people knew it and covered it up. These women deserve justice, and I simply can't imagine that there's a person in this room who would vote against a resolution to pressure our congressional representatives to finally release those files. Astonishingly, we're seeing here that Republicans in Congress would rather shut down the government than reveal the truth. They would rather protect the president and their wealthy friends than provide some measure of justice and redemption. We all just voted unanimously to increase penalties for human trafficking and extend the statute of limitations. You simply cannot vote for that and then vote down this amendment. That is a level of duplicitousness that you simply cannot justify to your constituents. Either you're with children and women who have been victims of trafficking and sexual assault, or you are against them. So shout it here from the floor, release the Epstein files.
There you go. That's
wow.
Wisconsin State Representative Lee Snodgrass.
Good for her.
Yeah, she really laid into them. They're coming down hard on trafficking, but don't release the Epstein files.
Right.
Well,
yeah, because
all right.
Yeah. All right.
I'm kind of getting the message there.
Hey,
Mark, let's hear what you have to say this morning.
Good morning, Mark. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I got back from a walk with the dog. And the fact that it took 2.5 miles to get him to finally do his business.
Thanks for that report.
I know.
But it is just this clown that was talking, trying to protect the fake electors, bringing up all this stuff about, bringing up the Russia thing and saying, oh, there was all this fraud in the election. And these poor fake electors. Yeah. I mean, they committed fraud. I mean, the ones from Wisconsin actually signed a document. Yes, we know we did wrong. We violated the law, and including a guy that's still in a commission with Spindell.
Yeah,
I mean, he shouldn't be there. But I mean, what happens when they get Jack Smith out there and tell him to testify, and he brings up the information that Russia was no hoax, that Donald Trump actually, for the love of God, he actually came out and said, Russia, if you're listening, get me the Hillary Clinton.
I know.
Yes.
I know. We made a big deal about that.
He asked them for their assistance, and they claimed that, well, there's nothing. Oh, nothing to see here. It's just all a hoax. Well, any honest man would not say something like that. It's just beyond me. I mean, it's tough to remain FCC compliant, and
I know.
It is just
well
spitting tax time, because these guys, every single one of them should be in jail.
I know.
The fake electors should be in jail.
Well, Mark,
I mean,
rest assured that I'm working and trying to get the S word said on this program.
And what gets me, we can say guano, we can say manure, we can say everything else, and all the S word is just the form of the old Anglo-Saxon word for it.
That's exactly right. See, we should listen to Mark on this thing. He's got the historical context right there.
Good job.
Thanks, guys.
Okay. Hey, thanks, Mark. I appreciate that. Yeah. Okay. Johnson says, he was part of the fake electors thing, and he gets a chance now to sue the government $50,000 or something like that. He says he has got no plans whatsoever to sue the government. He says, if I did sue, it would only be for the purpose of using the courts to expose the corrupt weaponization of federal law enforcement by Biden and Obama administration.
Right.
Obama?
Yeah.
He said it shouldn't be necessary to sue. Now, of course, they got the phone records of all those people that essentially were planning on the fake electors. Just the times they called. The conversations themselves were not included in any of those records. But, yeah, it's kind of a crazy thing, And let's listen. We're angry that the Democrats backed down.
Yeah, on the shutdown. Yeah,
because let's listen to cut 79 here. I was encouraged that this wasn't going to happen, but let's listen.
They promised to put America first. The only thing you guys put first is yourselves. Yourselves and the rich and powerful people who pull your strings behind the scenes. These people don't care. Mm-hmm. They don't have to call the insurance company because their claim was denied. They don't buy their own groceries. If you have a private jet, an offshore bank account, and an invite to Mar-a-Lago, go ahead and support your Republican representative. But if you're a regular person who feels like you're getting screwed over, if you are fed up with the status quo here in Washington that only works for those at the top, this majority is not fighting for you, but we are. Democrats are on your side, and we will fight with you every step of the way against the corruption, the lies, and the BS coming out of this administration. And we won't back this so-called deal.
Yeah.
It's not a real solution, and it is certainly not a clean CR.
Yeah, there you go. So I was encouraged by that.
Yeah.
But that didn't last long. Let's listen to cut 76 here real quick. This is Mikey Sherrill.
At this time, I'd like to yield 1.5 minutes to the gentlewoman from New Jersey, the next governor of New Jersey, Ms. Sherrill.
The gentlelady from New Jersey is recognized for 1.5 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, I rise in opposition to a rule for a bill that does nothing to protect over 450,000 New Jerseyans who will see their health care premiums skyrocket. I took my first oath to the Constitution when I was 18 and went to the Naval Academy. It's an oath to serve, to run toward the fight. And so I ran for Congress after I saw Washington Republicans attacking the Affordable Care Act. Mm-hmm. I promised I would take on the status quo. I would fight the big fights, because that's what people expect of their leaders. That's what people deserve from their leaders. Do not let this body become a ceremonial red stamp from an administration that takes food away from children and rips away health care.
30 seconds.
Gentlelady's given another 30 seconds.
That rips health care away from people and takes food away from children. To the country, stand strong. As we say in the Navy, don't give up the ship. Thank you, and I yield back.
There you go. Mm-hmm. Don't give up the ship.
Exactly.
Yep. Well, we all went down with that ship.
Apparently so.
Damn it. Damn it.
What happened?
Oh, I don't know what happened. I just don't get it. It just makes you really upset and angry.
Yes.
All right. Well,
hey, coming up in about 15 minutes, we'll be checking in with former U.S. Attorney Jim Santelle.
We heard from Doug in St. Francis. There's a reason why the Epstein files haven't been released yet. Yeah. The Epstein files were going to be released in a box set, and they still have. They're still trying to come up with a cover.
Still working on
the cover on that. The cover art's not working out for them.
Yeah, they got to rework that.
They might use the Trump picture.
Good. Oh, boy. On it goes. 19 past the hour. We'll come back with more stories and more of your phone calls. 608-879-8255. You can also text us on the Civic Media app. Free to download and free to use. Coming right back.
You're listening to Civic Media. Stay up to date on the latest news and information for your local community and Wisconsin by signing up for our free email newsletter. Visit civicmedia.us/email to get started.
Johnny,
remind me not to look over at you.
It's John and Gordy in the morning. I'm sorry about that.
Jesus Christ.
Okay. If you could have seen
Never
that on
mind.
YouTube. Wow.
Well,
all
never
right. Check us out on the Civic Media app to choose our station, WMDX, and then you can get in on our show. We want to hear from you. We take all points of view here on the program because that's what it's all about. You know, we want to hear what the MAGAs are thinking. We want to hear people who support our point of view on this. We want to commiserate. We want somebody to please help us, please.
Yeah, okay. 608-879-8255. We've got
such a big disappointment, the Democrats. Please.
Hey, CJ's on the line.
Well,
let's see what he's got.
All right. Yeah, what do you got there, CJ? Don't rub it in. Don't rub it in that we gave up.
Yeah.
Oh, of course, you guys would never do that if it was on the other foot.
No, we wouldn't. We'd never have done that.
I've been a victim of that before.
Have you?
You just recall the last midterm or the last elections that just happened? I think you did a little rubbing yourself.
We did.
But,
yes.
You know, wasn't that 44 days of, I guess, For Nothing by Tammy Baldwin and Chuck Schumer and the rest of the Democrats? 44 days of pain and suffering inflicted for absolutely nothing by the Democrats.
But wouldn't you also be able to blame the Republicans because they're the other side of that? It's a 50-50 thing. They didn't fold.
Every time a clean PR.
But they didn't.
First time it's ever happened.
But they knew they knew they had to negotiate with the Democrats to get their votes. So this would have been that one thing to negotiate the tax credits for the Affordable Care Act. There's a bright spot in all of this, and that is when everybody gets to the Affordable Care Act and find out their rates are going right through the roof. I don't think it's going to be a big thing for the Republicans in the midterm elections. Do you?
I think he's gone.
Oh.
I think he might have.
Well, I made my point.
Okay.
All right.
Oh, is he there? No.
No.
Okay, let's go on to Dick.
Yes.
Who is on the line. Good morning, Dick. Go ahead.
Well, congratulations on the fact that Johnson actually got him to come to work for the first time in how long?
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
You know,
right.
And being paid for doing nothing the whole time, not like the rest of this country. But real quickly to this little trickle that came out on the Epstein stuff. On the one hand, Trump wants to tell you how he's just cognitively the most, brilliant, this and that and the other thing. Then you got thousands of pictures, all kinds of video of him with the guy, and he doesn't know who he is. I don't even know him.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
How can that both be true about him?
Well, in all the proof, I mean, we have pictures, we have correspondence, we have actually Jeffrey Epstein saying that he is guilty of all of this stuff, and of course, Mike Wolf.
Yeah, Michael
is
Wolf
saying, well, you think he maybe should just hang himself and go out there and admit all this stuff? But
real quick too on they just kicked the can down the road till the end of January. Am I correct?
Yes.
And they're all patting themselves on the back over that.
Yeah, that's true.
I know it.
That's true.
Wow.
Yeah, we got to go through all this again.
And everybody's going to have higher premiums to pay on the Affordable Care Act. They're locked into it. I mean, they've got to sign up by the 14th or 15th of December. So, I mean, it's locked in. And by that time, it's too late. And those rates are going to be high. I don't think they're going to be able to change them retroactively if they agree to those tax credits, which they never will agree to. We're not suckers. Well, I guess maybe we are. They allowed this to happen in the House. So
let's go back to the phones. Trace is on the line from Portage this morning. Go ahead, Trace. Good morning.
Good morning, fellas. Real quick with healthcare, I've thought this for a long time. If I never have to see another GoFundMe for a kid with brain cancer, or a collection jar at a 7-Eleven checkout stand for a kid that needs some kind of emergency surgery for a terminal illness,
That's
take it out of my damn taxes. I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Thank you, Trace.
Trace, that's really important because that's all it takes, really. It comes out of our check. It's a little bit more of an increase on our FICA. It's something that we all should participate in. It brings the prices down for everybody, and we don't have medical bankruptcies anymore.
Right.
All right, let's get to, let's see here. I got to get to this.
All right.
Trump called American workers stupid. Now, this is cut 78. We got to hear this. We got to get this in.
All right.
Trump called it, and Laura Ingraham sounded like us, trying to say, hey, you don't want to say that. Let's go with it.
There's never going to be a country like what we have right now.
And does that
the
mean
Republicans have to talk about it, Laura.
And does that mean the H-1B visa thing will not be a big priority for your administration? Because if you want to raise wages for American workers, you can't flood the country with tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of foreign workers.
You also do have to bring in talent. When
we have plenty of talented people here.
No, you don't.
We don't have talented people here?
No, you don't have certain talents, and people have to learn. You can't take people off an unemployment line and say, I'm going to put you into a factory where we're going to make missiles, or I'm going to put you.
How did we ever do it before?
Well,
I'll
give you an example. In Georgia, they raided because they wanted illegal immigrants out. They had people from South Korea that made batteries all their lives. Making batteries are very complicated. It's not an easy thing. It's very dangerous. A lot of explosions, a lot of problems.
No.
They had like 500 or 600 people, early stages, to make batteries and to teach people how to do it. Well, they wanted them to get out of the country. You're going to need that, Laura. I mean, I know you and I disagree on this. You can't just say a country's coming in, going to invest $10 billion to build a plant, and going to take people off an unemployment line who haven't worked in 5 years.
Yes, but
and
you
they're
can.
Going to start making
but you
missiles.
You can. And, these people are in the unemployment line.
Yeah.
Hire them.
We're coming right back with Jim Santelle next.
WMDX 92.7. It's John and Gordy in the morning. Down at the controls. And, we've been talking about the Democrats giving in here. And, it's just a temporary thing, actually. We're going to be doing this all over again very, very soon.
About 6 weeks.
And we've got, we've got a few responses here. The ACA premiums go up, and the Dems will be blamed for caving. And that is from Carrie out in Tosa. A total no-win situation for the Dems, and they were played. GOP will not keep their promises anyway, and we know that, right? So that's the problem there. And then, of course, Trump was talking about how dumb American workers are. You don't just hire them out of an unemployment line. I thought that's why we have unemployment lines, is to hire people. Anyway, he writes that the people from South Korea were here at that battery plant. They were here legally, and they were bounced out. They were kicked out, and South Korea is not real happy about that. And, yes, they were going to help train some of those individuals, but it's not like a class showing them how to make batteries.
Right.
Doesn't work a lot of misunderstandings here. But anyway, let's get to our guest, Jim Santelle, Amicus, a law review. You can hear his program on Saturdays between 9 and 11 o'clock. We have so much to talk about and get to in regards to the law and the legal system that we used to have in this country.
Good morning, Jim.
Right, Jim?
Good. On that happy note, good morning, everyone.
Yeah, good morning to you.
Yes.
We were
with you.
We're all kind of surprised at Ketanji Brown Jackson's decision last week about the food SNAP program.
SNAP program.
So could you fill us in on the details of what she was trying to get to in this?
All right. So this comes out of the First Circuit, including Rhode Island. And that's where this district court judge, his name is John McConnell, had issued this order saying, President Trump, you need to fund SNAP. You need to go into the reserve and get the monies in place. Do it right now. The First Circuit Court of Appeals, which is the court just above Judge McConnell, tinkered with it a little bit, did not have a time, basically handled it briefly. And then the administration immediately went to the Supreme Court. This is all happening within hours on Friday. And it gets assigned to Ketanji Brown Jackson. Why? Because she is the justice who is assigned responsibility for emergency applications coming out of that particular circuit. Our circuit here in the Seventh Circuit, ours is Amy Coney Barrett. So what Ketanji Brown Jackson does, which again, I think surprised a lot of people on the surface, but it was actually masterful. She says, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to stay this right now, as is before the Supreme Court. I'm going to prevent anything from going forward. For what purpose? So that we can have the Court of Appeals, the lower courts, look at this and make a decision, right? And so it's an affirmation of the process. It's telling the administration, we can't just be emergency applications for everything. And she also buys some time, but she also speeds things up. And she also keeps it away, at least on Friday and somewhat over the weekend, from the larger majority on the Supreme Court that would have simply granted the stay and be done with it. It is still a mess, but it's a procedural vagary, if you will. Regrettably, in the time of Trump and all this, we need to understand that Ketanji Brown Jackson was doing something to preserve the interests of those 42 million people. It doesn't work in the end just because the timing on all this, and even to this morning, as the government's about to go back into effect, probably all of this mooted, but the administration back to the Supreme Court again just in the past couple of days. It will probably all go away because we now presumably have funding for SNAP. But it's important to recognize what Ketanji Brown Jackson did and what she did not do, which was not abandon this cause.
Well, Republicans, the MAGAs, will, say that it wasn't their fault withholding SNAP. It was the Democrats' fault. And yet all the time, Trump was fighting the SNAP program and funding it. I think that kind of makes it pretty obvious that who's to blame for that.
Right. And to that great point, John, one of the interesting things, again, you have to keep this up to date on this hour by hour. But even as Ketanji Brown Jackson is sending this back, it's coming back, and it's clear now by, again, as you were just indicating in your prior segments, that, yes, the government's going to reopen and the Democrats have conceded this and we're going to get funding here. Even while that's going on, this administration is still filing pleadings, the Solicitor General, with the Supreme Court saying, don't fund SNAP. Do not do this. And again, in fairness, also saying, well, maybe it's all going to go away with the new funding here. But it's going to happen. And they're still taking the position as hours tick by, no, do not go into this reserve. Do not provide food on the tables of Americans. A stunning reflection of what this administration's position is.
It really is. And in talking about the Supreme Court here, they made a decision. They had a little conference. Could you explain what happened during this?
Sure. Again, they have what are called decision conferences. They had one on Friday of last week. Unfortunately, John Gordy and Adam, they do not invite us to be a part of that. They should, but they don't. They don't return phone calls, right? So this is a private conference, and I think they did a couple. We know about two things that they did very importantly. One is they said no to Kim Davis, so we're not going to be revisiting same-sex marriage in Obergefell. Basically, turned down her appeal. She was the clerk who refused to grant licenses many years ago. So same-sex marriage, privacy rights. That remains in place. Supreme Court says no on that. That's public. They also, however, grant a certiorari. They decide to hear a case involving the mail-in ballots. This one is in Mississippi that has a law that basically says even after Election Day itself, for 5 days after Election Day, if the ballot is postmarked by Election Day, we count it. Basically, the mail's a little slow getting there. We're still going to count your votes. There's a challenge to that. And the Supreme Court said, yeah, let's hear that. And again, it's an indication that when it comes to voting, you may get yet another case. We've got the larger Voting Rights Act case we talked about. Another case, this one coming out of Mississippi, on whether or not the votes of every American, including those in Mississippi, should be counted if they happen to arrive after midnight on Election Day. That's a big deal. And the other one that, again, this is purely speculation, but hey, we do that a lot in America these days. And not
we do. That's what we do on this program. Yes.
We talked last week about, and we're just in the aftermath of this major oral argument on tariffs, indicating that probably we've got a majority on the Supreme Court that are going to strike down the administration's tariffs, or at least the way that they're doing it. They go into conference on Friday. Again, this is just speculation. What they normally do is after oral arguments, they would take an initial vote on how those cases are going to go. And then the Chief Justice or the majority justice would assign the case to someone to write up. My guess is that given the decisiveness of this, they may well have voted on tariffs last Friday. And again, given the decisiveness of the oral argument, maybe it's been assigned, maybe it's being written even as we speak. And it may indicate that sometime sooner rather than later, we're going to get that decision. Again, speculation based upon what they normally do at these conferences. It appeared that the vote that they would have taken if they did that would have said, Mr. President, you're out of luck. You're not doing this properly. And so it may have been a huge private day in American history last Friday, maybe written about down the road. We'll see the results sometime soon. But tariffs may have already been decided by the Supreme Court, just waiting to issue their decision once the large opinion and maybe the dissents are written.
Yeah, I know that Trump can do other things other than tariffs. There are penalties and punishments for protecting some of the issues or some of the products that we have in this country: aluminum, wood, and dairy, things like that. We can punish other countries for trying to flood our market with their products.
Right. All kinds of things that are available to him. And as we talked last week, it came up during the oral argument. There are other options that he has if he wants to do it. They're not quite as broad as his invocation of this law is. And they're more limited in time and scope. And frankly, if you really want to do this, Mr. President, let's go back to the 8th grade when we used to learn about civics and just say, you know what? I would like to engage let's all say it together, the Congress. Gosh, there's an idea, right? The Congress in establishing tariffs. They're the ones who can do it, get some legislation, put that in place, and accomplish it that way. Then you've got carte blanche. Congress wants to do anything with respect to tariffs, taxes, excises. Go ahead and do that. That's what the Constitution says. Do it the right way. And again, if you don't do it under this IEEPA, you do have some other limited opportunities. Which again remain even after the Supreme Court decision, whatever it decides.
Well, it's crazy, these tariffs. We were talking about it the other day where, the next president isn't going to have a handle on anything that he negotiated behind the scenes. We won't know what to do. That individual won't have any kind of written down guidance in regards to what we've agreed to with all these different countries. It's insane. This guy is micromanaging to a point where apprentices will never know what to do next.
Right. What is the inventory? What is our arrangement of all countries, with Canada individually? Again, with China, all those kinds of things. And here's the other one that I think about even now. We've got the tea leaves anyway of last Wednesday indicating that maybe this is all going to be found unconstitutional, at least in this way. Suppose you're the finance minister of one of these countries who has suffered these tariffs, and you are now negotiating with the leader of a nation where it's highly likely that the highest court in that nation is going to be invalidating the very thing you're doing right now. What do you do as a foreign minister, a finance minister, a treasury minister? Do you continue to negotiate? Do you continue to say, yes, Mr. President, we'll follow this, we'll put this together? Or do you say, I'm going to look at my watch and see how soon it is before the Supreme Court tells us that all of this is unconstitutional and somehow has to be remedied? The entire situation is untenable in every respect, regardless of whether you like tariffs or not. It is a complete economic mess and legal mess as well.
Talking to former U.S. Attorney Jim Santelle, host of Amicus, a law review. Jim, looking at some of the other cases here.
Well, before we get to the other cases, I mean, we're looking at tariffs, and these countries are also being forced to invest in the U.S. as well.
Right.
And so, now everything is on hold or has to be on hold. We don't even know what would happen. I told Gordy this a long time ago that they can promise that they're going to invest in it, and they just wait for the next president to come in and never fulfill those promises at all, right?
Right, absolutely. Right. There appear to be a lot of promises being made about things that are going to happen in the future, right? In America, we're doing that on Capitol Hill as well. Don't worry, we'll take care of it down the road. It also underscores this problem, which we've talked about in many other settings, which is just generally, even if let's assume positively that there's a president, not Donald Trump, after his second term here, if you're, again, a foreign country and you're saying, gosh, these are 343 million Americans who elected Donald Trump once, had a really bad experience, threw him out of the White House, elected him again.
Yeah.
And what are the chances that we can rely upon our former partners, again, Republicans and Democrats alike in the past, where we could at least rely somewhat on the consistency of major issues? Here, once again, you're that foreign minister. Gosh, am I going to throw my lot into the greatest nation on the face of the planet, richest nation that is all over the map and could reelect another Donald Trump in a few years? Yeah. What is the incentive for consistency in all sorts of things? That's the larger problem, which everyone talks about.
Yep. We'll get to Gordy's question. We got to get to a few other items that you have passed along to us.
We'll be back with Jim Santelle, former U.S. Attorney, on John and Gordy, WMDX, right after this.
You're listening to Civic Media. Find the latest news, information, and archives of all your favorite shows on the Civic Media website, civicmedia.us.
WMDX 92.7, John and Gordy in the morning. Dom is at the controls playing the music, and I just got a text here from Doug on the south side of Milwaukee.
Yeah.
And he said, how will WMDX pay you guys now that Trump has discontinued pennies?
Something to ponder? Yes.
Well, you know, I was thinking about that myself. Damn.
We'll have to take that up.
The thing is, pennies are like made up of zinc more than copper.
Yeah.
They've copper plated zinc. Isn't that crazy?
It is.
All right. Anyway, our special guest, of course, is Jim Santelle, Amicus, a law review, Saturday, 9 to 11 o'clock. Check that program out. We've got a few more questions to ask, and let's talk about the dreadlock issue.
What is this dreadlock case all about?
Right. Remember that all these cases revolve around things that happen to individual people or companies, corporations. This fellow's named Damon Landor. He's a Rastafarian. And he grows his dreadlocks out for literally a couple of decades. They're down to his knees almost. He is incarcerated in Louisiana. And when he is transferred from one site to another, he actually has a piece of paper with him. And he hands it to the prison guards and says, this is proof of my religious accommodations that you've got to provide. And this court decision from way back in 2017 says, do not cut his hair. This is a part of his religious liberty even as a prisoner. And they obviously, prisoners have rights too, right? We need to reaffirm that on a regular basis. Well, in Louisiana, they say, what? No. They hold him down. They shave all of his locks off, and he files a lawsuit. And he files a lawsuit under a particular statute. And there are a couple of them out there that talk about these kinds of things. And the question is whether or not this statute under which he brought his lawsuit provides him with relief. And the two things happened in the Supreme Court oral argument on Monday. One is everybody expresses outrage that this happens, horrified by the notion that anybody would do this to him, and condemns the corrections officers for doing it. But along the way, they also look at the statute itself. And again, at least the conservatives look at this and say that there was a lack of notice, get this, to the states that their employees could be on the hook to pay for violations of federal religious protections. Because there's no notice on this, probably Mr. Landor is going to be told, you do not have the right to sue under this. Needless to say, the three so-called liberals have a very different view of this and say, no, if you're violating the constitutional law, you're violating, frankly, the First Amendment, freedom of religion, you can recover. It's a statutory argument. It's a constitutional argument. And it looks as if the Supreme Court at some point is going to tell Mr. Landor, who's now begun to regrow his locks. He was photographed outside the Supreme Court. They're now down to his shoulders again. He has been released since that time. But they're probably going to tell him, you're out of luck. Sorry, can't file a lawsuit under this particular statute.
Wow.
Okay.
Well, that sounds like a bad outcome.
Yeah, it does. Disappointing.
And especially in a time when we have no bad outcomes in America, right? They're all good outcomes.
Yes, I know.
Things, right?
We don't like bad news every once in a while.
Now, here's another case, Jim, that, maybe not a super big headline, but Trump is asking the Supreme Court to overturn the E. Jean Carroll verdict. I thought this was all decided months ago, couple of years ago.
Years ago, right? Didn't we all think that, right? But apparently we're wrong. And again, this is E. Jean Carroll. She is the journalist. She's written books and columns, that kind of thing. You may recall well, she alleges that way back in the mid-1990s, Donald Trump raped her when she was at the Bergdorf Goodman store in Manhattan. And again, what happens is that she writes about this. He defames her while he's in the White House. His first term says, she's not my type, offensive things like that. Says this never happened. So she files a lawsuit and comes in and out of this in the federal courts. There are actually a couple of different jury verdicts. This is a $5 million jury verdict. This one has been upheld by the Court of Appeals. Again, to your good point, Gordy, we thought this was all done, and the point was just, okay, Donald Trump, now you got to pay off on these judgments, millions of dollars for E. Jean Carroll. But what does he do? He says, I'm going to seek review by my justices, the ones that he put on the court, at least 3 of them. And so he's filed a petition for review. They should not take this. This should not. There's nothing major in this case. It's aside from the fact it involves our president. It's publicly notorious and horrific. But there's nothing legally that needs to be resolved here. They should simply say, no, Mr. President, we're not taking this case. It should go away. And the lower court decisions against Donald Trump, civil judgments, millions of dollars for defaming her, should stay in place.
Mm-hmm. There was a time when the Republicans were against taking everything to court.
Yes,
they accused the Democrats of doing that and not using the legislative system of government, instead going to courts and having them make the decisions. And they always complained about it. I have a feeling that this administration, more than anything since 2016, has weaponized the courts because for whatever reason, and we know that Trump hasn't always been rich, he's got the money to go to court and just string these things out. And I think that's what the case here that we're talking about, E. Jean Carroll's case, is all about. Just string this thing out and see what happens. He's got the money to do it.
Yeah.
Right. And as we talked before, the emergency docket is just a variation on that, right? Robbing the lower courts of their capacity to resolve cases, enter judgments. Let's run to the court and see if they will kind of stop these things from happening. 23 cases like that as well.
Yeah.
The shadow docket, which we've talked about.
Yep.
Jim, we have to leave it there. Thanks for joining us. You can listen to Jim Santelle Saturday mornings, 9 to 11 on the Civic Media Radio Network right here on WMDX. Always a pleasure to have you in, Jim. Thank you.
Gentlemen, have a good Thursday.
Well, thank you. We'll be filling in for Pete Schwaba tonight and tomorrow. Tonight, special guest, Scott Dickers from The Onion.
That's right. And tomorrow, Pam Yaki will join us, along with Savannah Tomei Olson and Rocker with the MaxInc preview. Stephanie Miller's next. We hope you have a great day.
Wait, I have one more story.
What? No, we're out of time, John.
Just kidding.
Time marches on. Have a great day.
It's the John Gordy Show.
The national news cycle never stops, but it can be hard to find news about your local community. Civic Media is dedicated to providing quality local and state news coverage across Wisconsin. With the Civic Media app, you can get notifications about local stories that matter to you and your community. Find the free Civic Media app in your phone's app store and choose notifications from the menu to tell us what kind of news you want to hear about.